In 2026, the long-standing tensions between the United States and Iran escalated into one of the most dangerous geopolitical crises in recent history. What began as years of sanctions, proxy conflicts, and nuclear disputes has now developed into direct military confrontation, naval blockades, missile exchanges, and global economic shockwaves. Oil prices have surged, global shipping routes have been disrupted, and diplomatic negotiations are collapsing under the pressure of ongoing military escalation. The question now being asked across the world is simple but urgent. Are the United States and Iran sliding into a full scale war? To understand the current conflict, we need to go back to the collapse of diplomatic relations between Washington and Tehran. For decades, tensions have centered around Iran's nuclear program, regional influence, and U.S. sanctions. The situation significantly deteriorated after nuclear negotiations collapsed, followed by escalating military posturing from both sides. According to recent conflict analyses, the current war phase intensified after joint U.S. and Israeli strikes on Iranian military and strategic infrastructure in early 2026. Those strikes reportedly targeted command centers, missile facilities, and leadership structures, triggering immediate retaliation from Iran. Iran responded with missile and drone attacks against U.S. bases and allied positions across the Middle East. From that moment, the conflict expanded beyond a regional crisis into a broader international confrontation. The most significant turning point came when Iran retaliated with coordinated missile and drone strikes targeting U.S. military installations and allied infrastructure across the Gulf region. In response, the United States initiated a major naval operation in the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz, aiming to restrict Iranian maritime activity and oil exports. This move had immediate global consequences. Iran responded by disrupting maritime traffic in the Strait of Hormuz, a critical choke point for global oil shipments. As a result, oil shipments were delayed or halted, global energy prices surged, shipping companies rerouted vessels away from the region. The Strait of Hormuz, through which a significant portion of the world's oil supply passes, became a central battlefield, not just militarily, but economically. The economic effects of the conflict have been immediate and severe. Oil prices have risen sharply due to supply disruptions and fears of a prolonged regional war. Recent reporting shows Brent crude jumping to over $100 per barrel during peak escalation periods. Markets around the world have reacted with volatility. Stock indices have dropped during escalation phases, energy stocks have surged, inflation concerns are rising globally. At the same time, humanitarian organizations and the United Nations have warned about the global cost of the conflict, including rising food and fuel prices affecting developing nations. Some analysts argue that this war is no longer just a regional conflict. It is reshaping global energy markets and accelerating geopolitical divisions between East and West. Despite ongoing military activity, diplomatic channels have not completely disappeared. There have been attempts at indirect negotiations involving third-party mediators, including Pakistan, aimed at reopening trade routes and reducing escalation risks. Recent reports indicate that Iran has even proposed a limited deal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz in exchange for phased de-escalation steps. However, negotiations remain fragile. Key sticking points include nuclear program restrictions, military withdrawal conditions, sanctions relief, control of maritime routes. At the same time, both sides continue to maintain military pressure, making sustained diplomacy extremely difficult. On the ground, or rather across the region, the conflict remains highly active. The United States has maintained naval and air operations in the Persian Gulf and surrounding waters, focusing on restricting Iranian maritime movement and military logistics. Iran, meanwhile, continues to rely on asymmetric warfare strategies, missile strikes, drone attacks, proxy forces in the region. The result is a highly unstable conflict pattern where direct confrontation is limited, but constant escalation risk remains. Military analysts describe the situation as a controlled but expanding war zone, where neither side has declared full-scale war, but both are actively engaged in sustained combat operations. What is clear is that the U.S.-Iran conflict in 2026 is no longer a distant geopolitical tension. It is a live, evolving crisis with global consequences, affecting energy prices, international security, and the stability of entire regions. And as long as diplomacy continues to fail, the risk of further escalation remains very real.